Am I a cat? You'll have to guess. Money, 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 Mondays. Money. I'm gonna congratulate myself, since this is my vlog. To be honest, my creativity comes in stops and starts. The fact that I've had the discipline to vlog consistently during the pandemic has been surprising to me. But maybe when I reframe the experience, I understand why I've been able to maintain consistency. I just fucking like what I'm doing. Sometimes love what I'm doing. I love to dance. That much is obvious on my face when I'm dancing on What the Fuck Wednesdays. But I also like to tell stories. That might be a little less obvious with just my appendages, but I hope my appendages can convey emotion as well. Maybe more accurately, my tone of voice can. We are continuing with my stupid, opinionated takes on the world, the financial world. Last week, I asked whether currency could be a form of alternative investment. And yes, it can be. Just like everything people are trying to buy and sell these days. Okay? I think the most important thing, though, at least with currency for me, is that I enjoy the artistry of currency. I enjoy the storytelling opportunities of currency. These are very unique factors to me, so aside from the potential investment values, I have other value. I'd consider any investment potential to be what I'd call extra. I'm doing it more for my own enjoyment, i.e. the currency collecting. I'm currency collecting more for my own enjoyment than I am for the investment opportunity, but I will admit that an investment opportunity does indeed exist. So that's good. I can address many priorities with just one action. As I've explained before, we're continuing with mint rare banknotes, so I'm gloving up. Last week we finished with the most beautiful banknotes in the world, which really consisted of the beautiful people, the beautiful people. Now we're going to move on to 50 or 100. Okay, let's maybe move on to 100 first, or 50, or mix it. The mint rare world banknotes have come from the same supplier. The supplier sometimes includes a legend. As I've explained before, I'm just playing a guessing game, so the legend is just for maybe reference purposes after I'm done. To be fair though, I've been lazy. Once I've had my fun, I've rarely updated the description of the YouTubes. Maybe that'll happen some other time, who knows. What do I want to do? Okay, let's go with the 50. Part of the problem is that I might have reorganized the 50 so that I'm repeating some again, but hey, that's an opportunity for you to hear my sweet lovely voice. I also think it's fun because these notes are really interesting. They really are. For example, when would you have an opportunity to observe currency from red listed countries like Afghanistan? The Afghanistan Bank. I'll admit that I thought this was even a joke sometimes. Duh, Afghanistan Bank. Sounds like a ghetto bank. This bill is also smaller in nature. Than many bills that I've come across before. But I like the mix of shapes and sizes. They're fun. I mean, to be fair, right now, during the pandemic, all countries have technically been red listed, as I live in a country that has advised against outward travel. You're still free to travel as opposed to Australia, but you pay in many ways, mostly in terms of cost. And as a budget backpacker, that eliminates me from the market. When people ask, again, as they have many times about my travel plans, I'm still thinking. I'm still thinking mostly because the financial situation precludes me from thinking about anything right now. Things are just too expensive right now to travel. With the combination of low supply and low demand. The dot might make you think of Japan, but I know better than that, because this lettering is far from Japanese, and so is this man. My guess would be this country is close to the Indian subcontinent, maybe Pakistan, or surrounding. And with that, we've come across our favorite set. All from the same country. The next couple are. But I'll only identify as ex-Soviet bloc. So in increasing denomination, we have a 50, 25 of the next higher denomination. $50. $100. And a 1,000. So I'll just show the fronts again before I switch to the backs. The number of ex-Soviet blocks I have shows its influence in the last 100 or so years. Anyone who knows anything about history knows that there's been a long-standing capitalism versus communism argument slash war proposition. We are still in the midst of that discussion right now, because we have no clue what we're doing as humans. We have a number of countries becoming more and more powerful that are trying to convince us that their ways of government are better. China's trying to make that case through its Belt and Road Initiative. They're funding many capital projects in Africa. Oh, that was the front, and I'm showing you the back versions now. I think I know what side I'm on, having been born and raised in a democratic country. But through my extensive travels, 101 UN countries, 7 continents later, some people have successfully questioned what I believe in specific circumstances. Last time my live stream cut because of my battery, but this time I think I should be able to go on for the full time, and I might even go on a little longer just to make up the time. I traveled in Manila, Philippines, a couple months after Duterte, the president, had started his war on drugs, and that war on drugs essentially seemed to be extrajudicial and against law and order. I walked around Manila solo in the day and never saw myself the bloody mess that was apparently occurring. But my hostel owner warned me that it was indeed happening. His opinion really helped me understand why sometimes nuance matters. The hotel owner has family in Canada and has lived in Canada himself, so he knows fully what rule of law is. But he posed to me a question which I'm yet to be able to answer. What happens if people, drug lords more specifically, are raping children, and the existing judicial system that would be trying them is also on their side? So basically, the people enforcing the laws are the same people breaking them because they've infiltrated the ranks. What do? What are you supposed to do then? That's a good question that I wonder what the answer to it is. So apparently, if you trust Duterte's intentions, he fashions himself to be the person trying to defend this child rapist, also drug lords. I mean, sorry, I should rephrase that. To defend against these drug lords, also child rapists. So they're either part-time drug lords, part-time child rapists, or whatever they are. In those cases, if you send them to court, they'll just be exonerated because it's their buddies. Sort of like what Trump tried to do, stacking the Supreme Court. What do? So basically his answer was, you just take a gun and shoot them all dead without asking questions. And maybe once you have that criminal class out of the way, you can instill your people with at least some moral backbone and hopefully build law and order society. Okay. That's a good question, because I've no answer to that question. How would you deal with that situation? We again have what is an ex-Soviet bloc, and this one is actually easy because we have the naming right on it. Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Balkans have also had their share of sad history, but here's the even realistic state of the world: is all of human history has been sad and suffering. That's why sometimes I wonder what to say when we're talking about quote-unquote canceling people. Do we know that literally every costume anyone has ever worn probably has its roots in human suffering? That's why, for me, questions about how would you deal with a Philippines type situation are hard to answer. And I myself have an easy one for myself, which is don't procreate. That's it. As a parent, you're supposed to have some responsibility. You're supposed to provide some stability in the world for your kids for your children, for your offspring. But can you do that in a world that lacks such order? You think it has an order because you've lived through maybe a couple of decades of the best times in human history. But even then, as much as people are always talking as if we're better than we are as humans, we really are as bad as history proclaims. Okay? For anyone who thinks that Hitler is a rare phenomenon, I'll submit to you that in Canada, today, they are debating whether they should label what's happening to Uyghur Muslims in China as genocide. Okay? It's still going on. And to be honest, if you know anything about biology, evolution, neuroscience, you'll understand that it's actually something that might be part of human nature. When I describe it as part of human nature, am I exonerating it? No, I am merely describing what is. What ought to be is a completely different discussion that I think is an ongoing debate, and people conflate many things together. But all I know is that I'm lucky in a sense. I was born maladaptive. I've first and foremost no desire to have children. That much has been plainly obvious since I was 12. I've known, and that's part of my extreme self-awareness. I've known, and I am confident enough to proclaim it because I want people who might have similar ideas to feel comfortable. You know how many people have asked me with surprise, "Oh, that's possible in life? Abstaining from children?" Yes, and I'm talking about Western educated people, although admittedly that idea is mostly foreign to people in developing countries. Part of why I myself have pivoted into doing things my own way during this pandemic is because it's what makes sense as my best use of time. I mentioned before Cambodia and its genocide museum, and genocide has been a running theme for a second live stream in a row. I've probably mentioned it several times now, and the reason why is because it comes up as a theme when we're discussing currency and history of these countries. One of the reasons the genocide comes up so often in my stories is because it's happened a lot in history. And while I in some ways agree with Steven Pinker, the academic who thinks that life is better than it's ever been, the problem is that we're starting from a horrific starting point, and arguably speaking, it's just a little less horrific, but still horrific. And that's part of the problem. I'm just curious why anyone would think it's a good idea to procreate in a world of such suffering, especially because, as a parent who's supposed to provide safety and stability for your child, you have no idea how to do that in today's world. To be fair, parents never have known how to do it. If you trace back the lineage of evolution, kids just happen because they happen. Okay. They were largely viewed, and are still viewed in some countries, as property or chattel. Work hands on the farm to help the family, and a myriad of other reasons. But I think we can move past that. If again, we just largely try to entertain ourselves. I think part of marriage and kids is an evolutionary thing, yes, but also it's a lack of creativity thing. I mean, honestly, part of the reason why I've never been attracted to that is because I feel like in many ways it's the ultimate form of outsourcing your own happiness. Basically, most of the people I've met who've decided to engage in such things, marriage and kids, do it because they want to go like this: I'm going to push my happiness onto you. I am not creative enough, I'm not secure enough to find my own happiness or purpose in life. I must outsource it to another human being, and I'll make it your problem. And when you fail to do it, I'll blame you, divorce you, disown you as kids, whatever the case may be. And that's toxic and pathological. We've come across again one of the smallest bills that I've ever handled from China. I'm gonna go a little long today because last time the battery ran out prematurely. But as explained in a recent version of the Rich Roll podcast, Rich Roll, who in my mind is an eminent thinker, an ultra athlete with his share of suffering, is the type of model I am, in a sense. I just share things because I want to share things, because I like to tell stories, and I like to share philosophies. Whatever the fuck you do with your life, you go do it. I could care less whether I'm having an impact on your thought process, because you're the one who has to deal with the consequences. I mean, by all means, if you disagree with me on procreation, go have your own fucking kids. You're the one who has to deal with them. What the fuck do I care? Exactly. So, I am who I am. It is what it is. This one I know for sure is from Croatia. Zagreb. What's funny is that in these notes, the description clarifies that some of the banknotes look like cheap Monopoly money because they literally are the quality of cheap Monopoly money. Many times these countries print hastily during times of revolution, war, etc., etc., and that's what they had access to, or have access to. So I'm funny in that sense, actually. I can sometimes sound like an activist, but am I really? Because who the fuck cares? At least in my mind. I just like telling stories. I like connecting fact patterns into observable behavioral changes on my part. But do I expect other people to go down that path with me? No. That's why, in some ways, I should credit myself more with knowing very well how to use my energy. There were times before when I wondered about myself. Why do I seem to fight useless fights? But do I really? Am I fighting useless fights? Do I even fight? Or do I just storytell and let it be? Eritrea was also part of the 13 beautiful notes. This obscure country I passed along the Arabian Peninsula, as I've explained before. But I'm revisiting it with a purpose. You know, pirates were fucked up back in the day, and people dressed as pirates without maybe really knowing the historical significance. But now we've got people questioning people who partied as teenagers at southern themed parties. I think here's the thing. We as humans have wrought a lot of suffering on each other, but sometimes I think that we lack clarity to solve real problems rather than symbolic ones. I'd much rather us solve real problems than symbolic ones, in my opinion, if we are able to solve them at all. We've definitely come across this bill before, which was Nefertiti of Egypt. Again, the only reason why some of these are repeating is because I reorganized them within the pouch. And that's why we're going to come across some that I've already done. Have I ranted long enough? I'm gonna go for a couple minutes more. I'll again trace back to my pacifist roots, mostly because I think I've done a lot of what I've already wanted to do in this life, so I'm good. I feel good with what I've accomplished. And sometimes, especially in my pivots, I found things that motivate and excite me, so I'm going to lean into those instead, while the world largely resolves itself. I've reiterated this many times, but I think everyone, including me, we are very far from our best selves right now. And what's the point in dealing with people in that state? Especially if you have very little to gain. So for example, government rules and regulations are one thing, The supply and demand curve for travel is another, and the prohibitive cost is also another. So when you're fighting against so many things, sometimes you might want to take a step back and think to yourself, you know what? As much as tiger trekking wild tigers in India would be a pleasure and joy beyond belief right now, learning to dance, choreograph, and retell stories with currency is actually an equally compelling proposition, given how much time, effort, and money I'd probably spend to fail on the India endeavor at this current time. Maybe at another time, things will be better. Right now, we are where we are. Again, as an ENTP, I often debate myself on all sides because I'm just that way. In any case, I think we're close to being done. Are we? We'll do one more. Or we'll save the rest. Okay. Next time we'll continue on with that side, or we might just open up the hundreds. That's how sticky this has been. Ooh. Lots of stickiness.